Welcome back to Badass Websites here in BOMU. We're currently in Module 1, Website Basics, and we're at Lesson 6, the other very important stuff. In this lesson, you will learn important things to think of when it comes to accessibility of your website and legal stuff to keep in mind. A quick important note, just like other aspects of your business, your website must also comply with the law. This may be shocking to some people, but yes, actually there are laws that govern your website and they need to be followed. So, areas of compliance include website accessibility and website disclosures, and we're going to cover both of these in this lesson. The first thing we're going to talk about is website accessibility. Okay, so your website may be used by people with hearing and visual impairments, and your website should accommodate these needs. First, we'll talk about hearing impairments. Those with hearing impairments may have difficulty using any part of your site that relies on sound to deliver content or functionalities such as videos and audio, like podcasts. So providing transcripts for all audio content and subtitles for your videos will increase accessibility substantially. We actually do transcripts for our videos and our audio, and we provide subtitles to some as well. Mostly we use transcripts to make our audio and visual content more accessible. For visual impairments, yes, your website should be prepared to assist visually impaired people in accessing and consuming your content. Okay, so many visually impaired individuals use something called a screen reader, which is an assistive device that transforms a visual website into spoken text or even Braille. So there are simple things you can do to make your website screen reader friendly. Okay, one example is alt text. Alt text is text you add to an image file on your website that loads in place of the image if the image can't load or a screen reader is being used, okay? The best alt text will describe the picture in such a way that it clarifies its purpose and conveys the message to someone who can't see it. A quick note, alt text is also a great place for you to put keywords for SEO, and yes, not having alt text will negatively impact how your website ranks in Google. That said, don't use alt text just for SEO keywords, okay? A visually impaired user won't get much help when the screen reader just lists a bunch of random keywords to them. So describe the picture in context of the topic of the site in a way that helps the visitor. Remember, the point is to make things accessible. So don't let SEO overshadow the accessibility, but it's a good place also to include keywords that might support your SEO strategy. So here's an alt text example. This screenshot is within our website. We're using WordPress. This is the Gutenberg editor. And on the sidebar, you can see I've added an image, and when I select the image, there's a box that says alt text. Pretty much any website builder that you use will have a place for you to put an alt text for an image. And so look for that on your own platform. For this image, we have some alt text that reads, "Surprised man with mouth agape, eyes wide and hands up by his face, surprised by." And then I put insert context with keyword. So then you can put context in there, and that's how you can make it very descriptive, help someone understand what the purpose of the image is, while also using some keywords in there for SEO purposes. So that can definitely help with both accessibility and SEO without sacrificing that accessibility. The accessibility is actually something that Google is looking at. So we want to make sure it's really accessible for people who are using screen readers or who cannot load those images. Okay, another thing is headings. Make sure your headings are clear, easy to skim, and properly tagged. Okay, utilizing headings doesn't just break up your copy and make it more easy to read. It also helps the visually impaired user navigate your content as screen readers identify headers. So just like most word processing tools like Google Docs and Word allow you to add different heading sizes to your documents, so does your website. So here's an example. These are heading tag examples. Each page only has one H1 heading, and if you're writing a blog post, that would be the blog title that shows up at the top. But you might need to, when you're creating, say, a core page, a landing page of some sort, that top section, whatever that first heading is, will be your H1 heading. So you can see on this example that you're looking at here, the top one is an H1 heading. That is the biggest one, and it's actually important for SEO. And each page should only use the H1 heading one time, okay? It's typically the topmost heading on the page or the title of blog post or podcast episode, like I mentioned before. The remaining headings should be H2 and below. So wherever a heading appears on your page, it appears as a code tag inside of your website code. So it's going to be H1, H2, H3. These allow screen readers to easily identify different sections of text, their topics and context, which allows them to navigate your site more easily. So this helps with accessibility and screen readers. This helps with SEO. And using headings properly actually helps non-visually impaired people read and skim through your copy on your website, and it makes it easier for them to read. So use headings properly. Here's a quick resource that I would love for you to check out to learn more about screen readers and how they work. It's at accesslab.com, AXESSlab.com, /what is a screen reader. All of those separated by dashes. What dash is dash a dash screen dash reader. So it's really, really great. You can also download the PDF version of this presentation, and it is linked right in the presentation as well. All right, let's talk about color contrast and what it has to do with accessibility. Make sure the colors on your website don't inhibit a visually impaired user from using your website. Those of us who are not visually impaired typically don't think about these things, but it actually can make a big difference for someone who is visually impaired. Okay, when using text, make sure there's a high enough contrast with the text and the background that it can be easily defined. Okay, remember, color blindness oftentimes affects the perception of red and green the most. So don't put red on green or green on red. And then make sure color contrast compliance is anything over a rating over 7. So you want to make sure there are a lot of different color contrast measurement tools out there where you can pop in an image and it'll tell you the color contrast, and you want anything over 7. Okay, so here are a few examples. So we've got some yellow backgrounds with colored text. So we have on the far left, we have a yellow background with black text, and the contrast ratio is 11.84, so that's great contrast. The middle one is yellow background with a white text, and for me, I can see that pretty clearly. I think it's very easy to read, but the contrast is actually very, very low. So I would have to consider that when using white on yellow, even this darker golden color on my website. And then on the far right, this is a very low contrast where we used a lighter lemon yellow and white text, and it's even difficult for me to read. It's going to be even more difficult for someone who is visually impaired, so they won't be able to see that. Another example is on the left side, we've got this hot pink color with black text. I can read it. It's kind of difficult for me because of the way the colors mesh together. And it's a low contrast, so the contrast ratio is 5.3. And then on the right, you've got the pink with white text, and I can read that better, but it even has a lower contrast ratio of 3.85. So just because it seems like it's easy for you to read doesn't necessarily mean it's actually easy for everyone to read. Okay, here's another one with a blue background. On the left side, we've got this black text, and that is a contrast ratio of 1. Very difficult to read for someone who is visually impaired. But on the right, we've got blue with white text, and that has a contrast ratio of 8.13. So it's much, much easier for someone who is visually impaired and has issues perceiving different contrasts. So think of these things when you're adding text over color on your site. Okay. This link here will direct you to the Website Accessibility Initiative by W3 that covers all the ins and outs of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. That's a WCAG. We highly recommend that you go check that out and you learn a little bit more about website content accessibility and ways that you can improve your website to comply with those. All right. Another aspect of compliance is website disclosures. Your website is required to disclose certain information to the visitors of your website, okay? And there are 3 policies that we recommend. First is your privacy policy, the second is your terms of use, and the third is your disclaimer, okay? Your privacy policy discloses important information about how you collect and use user data. And this is the only policy required by law, such as regulations like the GDPR and the CalAPA regulations. If you collect any user data, if you have a website, you do, you must have a compliant privacy policy. And no, not every privacy policy out there is compliant. So you want to make sure it's compliant with all the relevant regulations. Lucky for you, Bobby is a lawyer and we have all of our legal templates. So you can get your free privacy policy by going to bobbyklink.com/free-privacy-policy. Okay. So this is completely compliant and customizable privacy policy template that you can use. Totally free. The next is your terms of use. So your terms of use, they're the rules of the road for your website. It dictates what's allowed and what's not allowed. So it tells people how they can use your website and the content on it. So it's really important. This is not required by law, but we highly recommend this because it does provide you a lot of protection. And so we feel, even though it's not required by law, it's just good sense. So go ahead and get that on your site. And the last one is the disclaimer. So your disclaimer is about preventing you from being sued or chased by regulators. It discloses important information that could cause problems later if it's not disclosed. Okay, things like your incentives, such as affiliate commissions and partnerships. It discloses that the information you provide is not a substitute for professional advice, and that testimonials and earnings claims are accurate but not typical. So your disclaimer, again, not required by law, but it's just good sense because it does provide you a lot of protection. So we highly recommend you get that. And if you wanted you wanted more than just the privacy policy, Bobby also has his entire website policy pack. You just go to bobbyklink.com/website pack, and it's super affordable to grab those 3. But we have made the privacy policy, since that is required by law, we've made that absolutely free. So you really don't need to worry about having to pay to comply with the law. So, but if you want all 3, you also have the option to get the website policy pack. And that's about it for this lesson. So in this lesson, we covered important things to think of when it comes to accessibility. We just skimmed the surface, so definitely go take that link, bobbyklink.com/WCAG. Go learn more about what website accessibility is and what you should be doing on your website. And then we talked about the legal stuff to keep in mind with your 3 website policies. Super important to protect you and your business. And that's for the end of module 1. And in the next module, we're going to talk about how to structure your core pages on your website. And this is the module where I'm actually going to be showing you wireframe examples. So you definitely want to tune in on the website so that you can watch the videos and see those examples. And then we're going to talk about design options for different sections on your core pages. So those are those wireframes, and I got a lot of them to show you. So go ahead and tune in for module 2. I'll see you there.